Meta and BlackRock's new deal to develop and own a $14 billion data center in El Paso, Texas, illustrates Meta's strategy to build out AI infrastructure and share the costs. The data center will provide 1 gigawatt of compute capacity starting in 2028, and Meta will lease the entire campus without bearing the majority of the cost and the debt. Now, Meta's getting access to compute to both power its own models and grow its ability to potentially lease computing power. Zuckerberg has said that getting into the cloud computing market is on the table. Now, the company said last year it plans to spend $600 billion on its data center build-out. The company has said it will spend as much as $145 billion this year, and analysts are forecasting a big jump in spending next. There have been reports that Meta is going to get into a $10 billion deal with Anthropic to provide compute to Anthropic.
So in today's headlines, Meta is spending $130 billion on AI data centers, and that's just this year. Meta raises AI infrastructure spending estimate to almost $130 billion, capping it what they say may end up being about $145 billion. And this includes a single facility in El Paso, Texas, that was originally scheduled to cost $1.5 billion. That price has ballooned to $10 billion. So why? Well, Zuckerberg, by his own admission, was very transparent and said they're still there, meaning Meta is still capacity constrained. What does capacity constrained mean? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in today's question. What is Meta's $130 billion actually buying, and who's really paying for it? So this $130 billion, it's not being spent on products, on employees. No, it's being spent on buildings. Buildings that exist for one reason: to process the information and data that you give them. And here's the part nobody's talking about. Even at a $130 billion spend rate for this year, they still can't keep up. They're capacity constrained. And so when we think about data center, what is a data center actually? These AI data centers. Well, picture a huge warehouse the size of several city blocks, and there's no windows, there's no people walking around, there's just rows and rows of computers. And it literally has equipment that's running 24 hours a day. This data center is consuming more electricity than some cities, entire cities. So I want you to think about something. Every time you use an AI feature on Instagram or Facebook, use a filter, a recommendation, what happens is your request leaves the safety of your phone, travels over the internet, and it goes into one of these buildings to be processed. It gets processed there, and then it travels back to your phone. And so this happens billions of times a day. Literally, no exaggeration, this happens billions of times a day. The other scary thing is how fast things are expanding. Meta just a few months ago estimated it would need $115 billion this year, just a few months ago, for their AI data center infrastructure. That number has been raised to 130 to 145 billion. AI is growing faster than they can build the buildings to handle it. And just to put some more context behind this, that one facility, that $10 billion project, literally, the amount of electricity they consume could power 750,000 homes. That one building. And so this is what Zuckerberg told investors when he's saying, hey, we're capacity constrained. More people are using AI, which means more requests. More requests mean more buildings mean more money, and there's no end in sight. So this train is off the tracks. And so because they're at capacity, they actually are renting capacity from some of their own competitors. They have a $10 billion deal with Google, a $14 billion deal with CoreWeave. I think there's a $15, $20 billion deal with Oracle. They're paying, and think about this in business, they're paying Google, who you could say is their biggest competitor, $10 billion because they can't build fast enough to process your data. I always try to give you some insight behind the headlines. Well, this is what tells you everything. Meta is also leasing some of its capacity in Anthropic. Anthropic, as you know, is a company that makes Claude. The company is telling investors it doesn't have enough room, but it is renting room to other AI companies on the side. So how does that make sense? We're capacity constrained. We have to go rent capacity from our biggest competitor, Google, but then we're also leasing some capacity to another competitor, Anthropic, who makes Claude. How can you have, it's like, why does that make sense? Well, this is actually what you should see or hear when they say that. You are why these buildings exist. Everything that they are doing is because of you. It's because of us. Every reel, the algorithm surfaces, every meta AI answer, every AI feature, doing anything at all, that's a request to one of these buildings, and it doesn't travel alone. It carries what you asked, and when you ask it, and where you were when you ask it, what you looked at first, what you did after you looked at the thing you looked at first. All that information is fuel. The building is the engine. And so really, to understand what this means for you, you don't spend $130 billion on buildings unless you believe the return is enormous, right? Well, the return is you. It is enormous. It's you. Right now, Meta is betting that you are going to continue to be a part of the cycle. Because without you, none of it all falls apart, right? There's no data. There's no requests. There's no billions of requests today. The return for them on this $130 billion spend is your data. Knowing enough about you to sell you the right ad, knowing enough to connect you with the right person at the right moment. Just the advertising revenue alone is the output, and you are the source of all of it. So $130 billion buildings funded entirely by your attention, and they still can't build it fast enough. And that tells you exactly how much your data is worth to them. I think it's worth more. And this is exactly why we have started encouraging people to utilize local AI. YoursAI.ai, we have a free membership. You can go get a copy of our local AI model, Yours AI. All your sensitive, personal questions for AI, never let it leave the safety of your phone. You don't need it traveling to some Google server in some building. And as importantly, the more you start taking control of how you use AI, the dumber these companies look for investing these billions of dollars, because ultimately, when people start taking control of their digital lives, before I said the return is you, so they gladly invested it. But that return of you is no longer actually going to continue to happen. So that breaks the entire business model. Every time you make a choice to use local AI for some of your day-to-day needs, you are making a choice and taking a stance against this never-ending cycle of these data centers invading our communities. This is Frank Satterwhite. If you enjoyed the episode, hit a like, subscribe. We appreciate the support. And again, you can get that free membership at yoursai.ai. Join a community of people who are just ready to do something different.